Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. My name is Madhavananda Das. These are our adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our 68th session we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. And we're building up. As Krishna Chaitra Maharaj told me, a very, very slow journey. Today we're having the second part of a contemplative kind of interactive reading on the book Embankment of Separation, the last chapter, which is called Mahaprabhu in Sri Gambhira. So we say interactive. We're hoping that devotees may feel inspired to offer some comments or things that would be very appreciated. We'll do it at the end. Gaura-graganya gana-gotra goloruharam Gauranga Gurutama Gopyata Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Vaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yeshaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema Bhidana Padama Pumata, Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Srikriyat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Samvaya Pitva Risha Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Vapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. We happy to be back. We were gone last week because of Radhastami. We'd gone to Gadagiri. So today we're doing some interactive contemplative reading on the book Embankment of Separation. This is the last chapter, which is entitled Mahaprabhu in Sri Gambhira. And in our last section we spoke something also about this book, Gambhiraya Sri Gauranga. It's the same topic. Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, and I think we'll finish this chapter today. It's a relevant chapter in our discussion because we've been hearing about the feelings of Srimati Radharani from the Bhramara-gita, the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, and how that chapter corresponds with the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. And that chapter lays a foundation for the meeting which happens later in Kurukshetra. So in our last session, go back a little bit and read how he was speaking about how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inside of the Gambhira, and all three doors were bolted very tightly. There's only one small opening, and Govinda got up, lit the castor oil lamp, and saw that all 3 doors were still bolted. With great difficulty, he opened one door, but he saw that Mahaprabhu was not there, and the other doors were also bolted from inside. Mahaprabhu had disappeared. Where's Mahaprabhu? He's not here. Then Govinda called Swarup Damodar and told him what had happened. They were in great anxiety. Where is Mahaprabhu? Where is Mahaprabhu? This is wonderful. How Mahaprabhu came out. All 3 doors were bolted very tightly, and the walls of the compound were very tall. How could he jump over them and slip away? All the devotees came with lamps and searched in many places, but they could not find him. At last they went to the Jagannath temple gate at the southern side of the Singadwar. There they found Mahaprabhu lying unconscious amongst some cows from the district of Tailanga. Mahaprabhu's body had become like a tortoise. His hands and legs are pushed inside his body like Jagannath. This is ecstasy, Mahabhav. Foam was coming out from his mouth and tears flowed from his eyes. His body looked like a pumpkin. Outside, if you touch it, it's all cold like a dead body. But inside, there's transcendental blissfulness, Ananda. The cows were smelling Mahaprabhu's body. When the devotees tried to drive them away, they would not leave him. All the devotees tried their best to rouse the consciousness of Mahaprabhu, but they failed. So in that unconscious condition, they carried Mahaprabhu back to Gambhira. This is what we read in our last session 2 weeks ago. And I would like to share with you a story in this regard, which was told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from the Gambhira, and in our last session a couple of weeks ago, we cited this book, Mahabhav Prakash, by Kanai Kuntia, which speaks about, it's a book 500 years old, which was compiled by Kanai Kuntia, one of the associates of Mahaprabhu, who was the head priest of the Jagannath Mandir at that time. And in the beginning of the book, he mentions that he heard these things from Swarup Damodar, from Roy Ramananda in the Gambhira. And this book speaks about the Mahabhav Prakash, a form of great ecstasy of both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he comments that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Mahaprabhu disappeared from the Gambhira, it's described that the devotees went searching for him in 4 different places. They went to the Singadwar gate, which is where they eventually found him. They also went to search for him at the Gundicha Mandir. They went searching for him in Alanath, Brahmagiri. And the 4th place which is mentioned is Konark, where they went. Hare Krishna, I just realized I didn't have this microphone set up. I hope this sounds better now. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur raises a question that why did they go searching in Konark? Konark is only mentioned 2 times in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once when Mahaprabhu saw the ocean to be like the Jamuna, and he jumped in, and the water carried him to Konark, and a second time mentioned here. So why did the devotees go walking all the way to Konark, which is quite a distance? Why did they do that? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explained, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going there on a regular basis. Just as Srimati Radharani was going every day at noontime to Suryakund to worship the sun god, so also in the mood of Srimati Radharani in Jagannath Puri, which is Gupta Vrindavan, or hidden chamber of Vrindavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to worship the sun god at Konark. So I'll continue reading. The devotees, they'd found Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by that Singadwara gate, and they were trying to bring him back to external consciousness. It says, then Swarup Damodar Goswami chanted very loudly in his ear, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. After some time, Mahaprabhu regained his consciousness. His hands and legs came out and he resumed his general form. Then he asked Swarup Damodar Goswami, I heard the very sweet singing of Krishna in Vrindavan. I'd been to Vrindavan. Why did you bring me here? Saying this, again he began to cry. Ha ha Krishna pranadana, ha ha Padma lochana, ha ha Dibya Sadguna Sagara, ha ha Shama Sundara, ha ha Pitam Badadara, ha ha Rasa Vilasa Nagara, Kahan Geli Toma Pai, Tumi Kaha Tahanjai, Eta Chahi Chalila Dana, Swaruputi Kole Kori, Prabhure Aniladari, Nijastane Basaila Laina. Alas, where is Krishna, the treasure of my life? Where is the lotus-eyed one? Where is the divine ocean of transcendental qualities? Alas, where is the beautiful blackish youth dressed in yellow garments? Alas, where is the hero of the rasa dance? Where shall I go? Where can I find you? Please tell me. I shall go there. Speaking in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began running. Swarup Damodar Goswami, however, stood up, caught him and took him on his lap. Then Swarup Damodar brought him back to his place and made him sit down. Someone's, Brajavani has commented that Konark is so far from Jagannath Puri for a walk. It's about 8 miles. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described that he was over 7 feet tall and he could move very, very quickly. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's comment is not necessarily implausible. It's certainly possible. So we're hearing about this pastimes in the Gambhira. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is lamenting, Swarup Damodar is doing kirtan, because Swarup Damodar Goswami is Lalita in kṛṣṇa-līlā. And Krishna, Mahaprabhu, needs Lalita, Swarup Damodar, to teach him how to relish Radha Bhav. And by doing this, he's satisfying both his internal desire and an external desire. Internally, Krishna wants to understand the mood of Radha, but he's not able to do that on his own. He requires the help of someone else. Externally, he's trying to teach the devotees in this world about the moods of Vrindavan. And one of the indirect instructions we get from that is that if we want to develop the mood of Vrindavan, we also have to find someone. Just as Krishna himself had to take shelter of Lalita in the form of Swarup Damodar Goswami to understand the mood of Braj, the mood of Radha. Also, as devotees, we have to take shelter of someone. It's not just that we want some religious piety, but we want to develop the mood of someone. So to continue back with Embankment of Separation, this is gaura-līlā. He's always in Radha Bhav, and sometimes also in Gopi Bhav. Sometimes he sees the beautiful form of Krishna. He hears Krishna talking to him. And sometimes he hears the sweet singing of Krishna's flute. Sometimes he smells the fragrance emanating from the body of Krishna. And sometimes Mahaprabhu also feels as if Krishna is kissing him, adada sparsha. Seeing Roy Ramananda, who's Vishaka Sakhi in Braj Leela, and Swarup Damodar, who's Lalita Sakhi, Mahaprabhu would put his arms around their necks and cry, "Oh my Sakhi, what shall I do? I cannot tolerate these pangs of separation. It is intolerable. Where shall I go? Where shall I find the Lord of my heart, my most beloved Krishna? Please, please, both of you, tell me, what shall I do? What shall I do?" While seeing kṛṣṇa-līlā, Mahaprabhu would think of himself as a gopi and sometimes a kinkari, a maid-servant of the gopis. Now, this is a very astonishing thing. To comment a little on this. This is Gauranga Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. In other places, as in Navadvip or in Vrindavan, and when we visited there in South India, Mahaprabhu would sometimes experience a mood of different devotees. In Navadvip, sometimes he was in the mood of Lord Shiva, sometimes he was in the mood of Balaram, sometimes he was in the mood of Rukmini, sometimes he was in the mood of the gopis or Braj. But we don't hear a description of him being in the mood of a kinkari or a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Here in Jagannath Puri, sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would see Krishna in Jagannath Vallabha gardens. Sometimes he would smell the fragrance of Krishna, sometimes he would hear the flute song of Krishna. In this way, all 5 of his senses were perceiving Krishna in the way that Srimati Radharani was perceiving Krishna. Sometimes Mahaprabhu would see the ocean as a Jamuna. Sometimes it's described that he would see Govardhan Hill as Chatak Parvat. And in the mood of a kinkari, he would walk on Govardhan Hill. And we wrote some article about this in our magazine about Govardhan. And we raised the question that why is it that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told Jagadananda Pandit that when you go to Vrindavan, don't walk on Govardhan Hill, because Govardhan is non-different from Krishna. But here in Jagannath Puri, when Mahaprabhu saw the hill Chatak Parvat, he saw it as Govardhan, and Mahaprabhu walked on it. Why? When he's told the devotees not to walk on Govardhan Hill. Now someone may say, well, this is not Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is there in UP, Uttar Pradesh. But we're not very satisfied with that answer because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it as Govardhan, and he saw Radha Krishna there. He really thought that he was at Govardhan. So then why did he walk on Govardhan Hill? We can expand that question in the way that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did in one article, that not only why did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walk on Govardhan Hill, but why did Madhavendra Puri walk on Govardhan Hill? Because to build that temple of Gopal, it was on top of the hill. There's no question he had to walk on the hill. So why did he walk on the hill? And Sri Chaitanya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that there are different moods in devotion. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Madhavendra Puri were experiencing the mood known as Acharya Das Abhiman, or the mood of being a servant of the Acharya. And in that mood, they were walking on the hill. That Acharya Das Abhiman is also known as Manjari Bhav. Because the Manjaris, they're serving their Acharya. Who is their Acharya? It's Lalita or Vishaka. And all the different Manjaris, such as Rupa Manjari and Guna Manjari and Tulsi Manjari and others, they're serving their Acharyas, their leaders in that way. So similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he adopted this mood of a kinkari, then he walked on Govardhan Hill. And there in Govardhan Hill, he saw Radha and Krishna in a cave, and he was described that he was being engaged by the gopis to collect flowers and make garlands, which is the work of the Manjaris. He didn't see himself as one of the gopis. He didn't see himself as Radha or as Krishna. He was watching them, and he was engaged in service of the gopis. That's the mood of a kinkari that our Guru Maharaj is speaking about here. So to continue our reading, one day while going to take bath in the ocean, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw a flower garden, and it appeared to him as Vrindavan. Immediately the mood of a Sakhi swelled up in him, and he went to every corner and flower tree, every creeper and flower tree to search for Krishna. Oh, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? The gopis were searching in Vrindavan, going to every tree and creeper. And Mahaprabhu was doing the same. Then all of a sudden, he saw the very beautiful Shyam-sundar form of Krishna underneath a Kadamba tree. Mahaprabhu became so ecstatic that he fell to the ground unconscious. Then all the devotees, headed by Srup Damodar Goswami, chanted Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When Krishna Nam entered into his ears, Mahaprabhu regained consciousness. Then he sat up and looked all around, saying, "Where's Krishna? Where is he? He's stolen my heart and ran away somewhere, that great thief Krishna. I cannot see that Murli Vadana Krishna, who is holding a flute to his lips. I cannot see him. What shall I do? Now, it's an interesting question to raise. We were doing some reading here in our ashram in Jagannath Puri one evening with some local devotees from Chaitanya Charitamrita, reading from the kṛṣṇa-līlā about Mahaprabhu's pastimes in the Gambhira. And we read something about how Mahaprabhu had fallen unconscious, and Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda and the other devotees started doing kirtan, and they brought Mahaprabhu back to external consciousness. And at that time Mahaprabhu became upset, and he began to complain to them, what did you do? I was there. I was in Vrindavan. I saw Krishna. Where did you bring me? Where am I? And so the question came, very thoughtful question, very good question, that how do we understand this? How do we understand this kirtan? What kind of kirtan is this that it disturbs the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? We should, first of all, to answer that question, we should understand that Srup Damodar Goswami is Lalita Saki in Kṛṣṇa-līlā. She's a very, very intimate associate of Srimati Radharani. And we should have full faith that whatever she's doing, whatever Srup Damodar Goswami is doing, is for the pleasure, ultimately, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or ultimately Srimati Radharani. So let's go a little bit deeper then. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, Krishna's coming as Mahaprabhu, he's wanting to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. That mood of Radharani is something like a roller coaster, where sometimes you're going up very slowly, and then all of a sudden you stop at the top of a great hill, and then you go down very, very fast, and then again you go up, and then again you stop, and then again you go down. So this is a mood of Radharani. This is a prema dwara, or the river of love in Braj, which has two embankments, the embankment of union and the embankment of separation. And sometimes they're in union, they're together, and sometimes in separation, they're feeling some distress apart. So Srup Damodar Goswami, understanding the mood of Srimati Radharani, because he's Lalita Saki, sings in a way to for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand that mood. And sometimes Krishna, as Mahaprabhu, is experiencing union. And he's seeing Krishna. And then he falls unconscious, just as Srimati Radharani would fall unconscious. And just as Radharani sometimes would be with Krishna, and then suddenly Krishna would disappear in her madness and separation. She would see Krishna, she'd have some spurti, then Krishna would disappear. And then again he would reappear. So in the same way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Krishna, and then there was union, and then Srup Damodar Goswami began singing, and then Mahaprabhu experienced the feelings of separation. So Srup Damodar Goswami is very, very expert in enhancing the mood of Mahaprabhu. Don't have any doubts about him. To continue our reading, Mahaprabhu is feeling the pangs of separation from Krishna and always crying, Rodrudra Man. Goura is crying for Krishna, and Jagannath is crying for Radha. Two crying forms are there in Jagannath Kshetra. Therefore that Kshetra is known as Vipralamba Kshetra, the crying Kshetra. Krishna Viraha Vidura and Radha Viraha Vidura. Two Viraha Viduras meet together in Purushottam Kshetra. So Krishna Viraha Vidura means the embodiment of separation from Krishna. And that's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's in the mood of Radha as the embodiment of separation from Krishna. And Radha Viraha Vidura means the embodiment of separation from Radha. And that's Lord Jagannath. Rasanandi Radha Sadasa Vapur Alingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatume. The Jagannath Ashtakam describes that Lord Jagannath is always embracing Srimati Radharani very tightly to his chest. This means that Srimati Radharani is in the heart of Jagannath, because Jagannath is the embodiment of separation from Srimati Radharani. He's Madhurja Rasa Ganayiti Murti, in the language of our Guru Maharaj, the condensed mellow, the condensed form of conjugal mellow. He's Mahabhav Prakash. That's Lord Jagannath. He's Radha Viraha Vidura Rup, or the embodiment of separation from Radha. And our Guru Maharaj describes that this Krishna Viraha Vidura and Radha Viraha Vidura, Two Viraha Viduras meet together in Purushottam Kshetra. So we should know, we should understand who is Goura, who is Jagannath, and the strange meeting between these two, Krishna Viraha Vidura and Radha Viraha Vidura. Goura is crying for Krishna and Jagannath is crying for Radha. Two are crying in the ecstatic mood of Mahabhav. Such is gaura-līlā, kṛṣṇa-līlā. They are the same Leela, but the mood is different. Sambhog and Vipralambha. Braj-līlā is on the Sambhog side, whereas gaura-līlā is on the Vipralambha side. It is like the flow of a river. That is Līlā Pravaha, the flow of Līlā. As a river has two embankments, similarly the flow of Kṛṣṇa-līlā has two embankments, Sambhog Tata and Vipralambha Tata. The embankment of union is Braj-līlā, and gaura-līlā, that is the embankment of separation. Thus ends the book known as Embankment of Separation in the chapter Mahaprabhu in Gambhīra, the Gambhīraya Sri Gauranga. So I'd like to stop here. I'm going to have just a short session today because I have some japa to chant and some things going on. But before we finish, I'd like to invite the devotees, if anybody who's online has any reflections or comments, something that you appreciated from this description, you can please share it. You can also mention that this wonderful book, which Satyaraj Prabhu once wrote a review on, The Embankment of Separation, this wonderful book, which he described as a great classic within ISKCON, encouraged everybody to read it. That book is available in ebook format on Amazon, and we're getting ready to reprint it in another deluxe edition with many pictures and with 3 new chapters. So we'd like to encourage the devotees to take advantage of that. So, okay, we'll go ahead and stop here since nobody has any comments, and we'll continue with our session with session number, 69 next week. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Gour Premanandi Hari Hari